The large amphitheater of the Galactic Council buzzed with the murmurs of 17 different alien species. Some floated in bubbles of special gas. Others sat on cushions that matched their strange body shapes. A few stood on thin legs that looked too weak to hold their massive heads. Dr. Alan Carter took a deep breath as he walked to the center of the speaking circle. The blue light from above made his simple Earth uniform look dull compared to the shining clothes of the alien representatives. His heart beat fast in his chest, but he kept his face calm. This was not his first time speaking to the Council, but it was the most important. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, Alan began, his voice steady. Earth thanks you for this chance to present our latest work in space travel technology. A ripple of what sounded like laughter moved through the audience. The translator in Alan's ear caught snippets of side conversations. The humans again? What could they possibly have to show us? Their fastest ships still use reaction drives, like children playing with toys. Alan ignored them and touched the control pad on his wrist. A hologram appeared above the center platform, showing Earth's solar system. For the past decade, Earth scientists have been exploring the theory that our universe exists in more than the 3 dimensions we can see plus time, he continued. The laughter grew louder. The Zolaxian representative, a tall blue being with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like small suns, didn't even try to hide his amusement. Human, the Zolaxian, called out, not waiting to be recognized by the council leader. Even the youngest Zolaxian child knows about higher dimensions. Your scientists discovered string theory, less than 100 Earth years ago? We mastered 11-dimensional mathematics before your kind learned to make fire. More laughter filled the room. Alan nodded politely. You're right, of course, Representative Zolteth. We are late to this field of study, but we believe we've discovered something new about the nature of the 7th dimension. Now the room erupted in open mockery. The Drillari ambassador, his long neck stretching forward from his hovering chair, whispered loudly to his aides. Next they'll tell us they've invented faster-than-light travel. His aides made the bubbling sound that passed for Drillari laughter. The council leader, an ancient Phylaxian whose skin had turned the pale green of extreme age, raised one gnarled hand for quiet. The room gradually settled. Dr. Carter, she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. Earth has been part of the galactic community for just 23 years. You've been given access to technologies that advanced your civilization by centuries, yet your world still struggles with unified government, clean energy distribution, and basic interplanetary travel. Perhaps your efforts would be better focused on these areas rather than theoretical physics beyond your understanding. Alan could feel his face growing warm, but he kept his expression neutral. Beside the main entrance, he caught sight of Valerie Reese, Earth's diplomatic attaché. Her dark skin contrasted with her silver uniform as she gave him a small nod, their secret signal to continue with the plan. You make excellent points, Council. Leader, Alan said respectfully, and I thank the Council for its guidance. Earth will, of course, continue to develop in the areas you suggest. He shut down his hologram and collected his presentation materials. The aliens seemed surprised by his quick acceptance of their dismissal. That's it? Asked the Trelgath representative, whose translucent body pulsed with confusion. No argument? No human determination speech? Alan smiled. Sometimes the best way to prove a point is through action rather than words. Earth thanks the Council for its time. As he walked out of the chamber with as much dignity as he could manage, the laughter started again, following him through the doorway. Valerie fell into step beside him as they entered the transport tube that would take them back to the Earth Embassy section of the massive space station. That went exactly as expected, she said once they were alone in the moving tube. Alan loosened the tight collar of his uniform. I felt like a kid being patted on the head by adults. Did you hear the Zolaxian? Before your kind learned to make fire, I wanted to remind him whose ancestors were still swimming in primordial oceans when humans built the pyramids. But you didn't. Good restraint. Valerie checked her communications device. The message has been sent to Earth. The council's reaction was recorded and transmitted. The transport tube slowed to a stop and they stepped out into the Earth embassy. Unlike the grand chambers of the older galactic species, the human area was small and functional. A few potted plants from Earth added color to the otherwise plain space. Alan walked to the window that looked out into space. The massive Galactic Council station orbited a neutral star at the center of the settled regions of the Milky Way. From here, he could see the ships of various species coming and going, most of them using some version of fold space technology that the older races had developed thousands of years ago. Soon the ships from Earth wouldn't need the established jump gates. They would simply disappear from one point in space and appear in another. "How much longer until the test?" he asked. Valerie joined him at the window. "The Vanguard is ready. They were just waiting for the Council's response. Admiral Cole has given the green light for the test run tomorrow." Alan shook his head, still staring at the alien ships. "They really believe we're centuries behind them. Did you see their faces? They think we're children playing with toys we don't understand." "Let them think that," Valerie said. "The Valari Empire has been pushing at our borders for years. Their ships have been scanning our defenses, testing our response times. Intelligence says they're planning something big. And none of the Council races seem concerned about it. Why would they be? The Valari haven't threatened them, and humans are still the newcomers, barely worth protecting according to the older species." Valerie's voice had a hard edge to it. "But they'll change their tune when they see what the Vanguard can do." Alan turned away from the window. "I should get back to Earth. Dr. Russell will want my report on the Council's reaction, though I doubt she'll be surprised. You leave in 3 hours. Until then, try to look disappointed when you're around any of the other diplomats. We don't want anyone getting suspicious." Alan nodded and headed to his temporary quarters. As he walked through the embassy, he thought about the ship waiting in its secret hangar on Earth. The USS Vanguard, humanity's first seventh-dimensional vessel. A ship that could move through space in ways that even the oldest galactic civilizations had never imagined. Let them laugh now, he thought. They wouldn't be laughing much longer. The underground facility at Groom Lake was bigger than most cities, though no map showed its existence. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, thousands of scientists and engineers worked on humanity's greatest secret. Dr. Olivia Russell stood in front of a large clear board covered with equations. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she hadn't slept in over 20 hours. The numbers and symbols on the board glowed with a soft blue light. They described something that most humans couldn't understand. How to fold the seventh dimension. "You need to rest," said Commander John Blackwell, walking into the lab with 2 cups of coffee. He was tall, with short gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too many wars. His uniform was clean but wrinkled, showing he hadn't slept much either. Olivia took one of the cups without looking away from the equations. "The test is tomorrow, John. If my calculations are wrong, the Vanguard and everyone on it will be scattered across multiple dimensions. Your calculations aren't wrong. We've tested them a dozen times with the small probes. Sending an empty probe through is different from sending a ship with 30 people." She finally turned to look at him. "Did you see the message from Alan? The Council laughed at us just as we expected." John smiled a little. "Good. The more they underestimate us, the better our advantage when the time comes." Olivia walked over to a large window that looked down into a massive hangar. Far below, technicians swarmed around a perfect sphere of dark metal about the size of a small office building. There were no visible engines, no weapon systems, nothing that would make anyone think it was a spaceship. The USS Vanguard didn't need any of those things. "I still don't understand how you discovered this," John said, joining her at the window. "Everyone said it was impossible." Olivia sipped her coffee. It was a story she had told many times, but it still felt strange to say out loud. "It came to me in a dream 5 years ago. The complete equation fully formed. I woke up and wrote it down before I forgot it. And changed everything." "Not yet," she said. "But tomorrow, maybe." The lab door opened again and a young man in a lab coat hurried in. "Dr. Russell, the Admiral is asking for you. The secure feed from the Council station just came in." Olivia and John followed him to the command center. The large room was filled with screens and busy staff monitoring everything, from space traffic to global communications. At the center was a large round table with a holographic display. Admiral Kate Benson looked up as they entered. She was in her 60s with short silver hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. Dr. Russell, Commander Blackwell, the Council. Reaction was exactly what we hoped for. They think we're centuries behind them. She touched a control, and the recording of Alan's presentation played in the air above the table. They watched as the alien representatives laughed and mocked Earth's supposed attempts at higher dimensional physics. "Perfect," said John when it ended. "They have no idea what's coming." "What's the latest on the Volari?" Olivia asked. The Admiral's face grew more serious. "Not good. Our spy satellites have detected increased activity at all their forward bases. 3 of their dreadnoughts have moved to positions just outside our solar system. They're being careful to stay in neutral space, but the message is clear." "They're preparing to attack," John said. "Yes. Intelligence suggests they'll make their move within the next 2 weeks." The Admiral looked at Olivia. "Is the Vanguard ready?" "The final calculations are being loaded into the system now. If the test tomorrow is successful, we can begin preparing the other ships." Hidden in various locations around Earth, 20 more ships like the Vanguard were in different stages of completion. Once the test proved the technology worked, construction would speed up. "Good," said the Admiral, "because we're going to need them." Later that night, Olivia returned to her small quarters. The room was simple: a bed, a desk, a small bathroom. She had lived here for 3 years, ever since the Vanguard project began. On her desk was a picture of her parents, both dead now. They had been scientists too, but they had never lived to see humans reach the stars. She sat on her bed and closed her eyes, trying to remember the dream that had changed everything. In it, she had been floating in empty space, but she could somehow see all dimensions at once. The universe wasn't just length, width, and height. It wasn't just the 4 dimensions that Einstein had described. It was 11 dimensions folded together in a pattern so beautiful it had made her cry in her sleep. And the 7th dimension was the key to it all. It wasn't just another direction like up or down, left or right. It was a state of possibility, where matter could exist in multiple places at once. By carefully controlling that state, a ship could effectively disappear from one point in space and reappear in another, without crossing the distance between. The aliens thought they understood higher dimensions. They had built their fold space engines and quantum drives based on that understanding, but they were still traveling through space just very quickly. The Vanguard wouldn't travel at all. It would simply be in 2 places at once, and then collapse that possibility into a single reality. Olivia's phone beeped with a message. It was from Captain Steve Hendricks, the man who would command the Vanguard tomorrow. "Everything is ready for the test. The crew is prepared. Are you sure about your calculations?" She typed back, "As sure as I can be. See you at the launch." Olivia tried to sleep, but her mind kept working on the equations. Not because she thought they were wrong, but because she already saw how they could be improved. The 7th dimension was just the beginning. There were 4 more dimensions to explore, each one offering new possibilities. But first, the Vanguard had to succeed. First, humanity had to show the galaxy that the primitive apes had learned some new tricks. First, they had to stop the Volari from attacking Earth. Tomorrow would change everything. She just hoped it would change things for the better. Captain Steve Hendricks walked through the corridors of the USS Vanguard, checking each station one last time. In 30 minutes, they would either make history or become a tragic footnote in humanity's scientific journey. His stomach felt tight, but his face remained calm. A captain never showed fear to his crew. The inside of the Vanguard looked nothing like traditional spaceships. There were no windows, since the ship would never really travel through space in the normal way. Instead of the usual control panels, most walls were smooth surfaces that lit up with information when touched. The circular corridors followed the outer curve of the sphere, with the ship's heart, the dimensional core, protected in the center. Steve stopped at the medical bay, where Dr. Paul West was checking his supplies one final time. "Everything ready, Doctor?" Steve asked. Paul looked up and smiled nervously. "As ready as we can be for something that's never been done before. No one knows what seventh-dimensional travel will feel like for the human body." The simulations showed no problems, Steve reminded him. "Simulations are just educated guesses," Paul said, but he nodded. "Still, I'm honored to be here. This is like being with Columbus when he sailed for the New World. Let's hope our journey goes better than his did for the natives," Steve said with a small smile. He continued his rounds. In the engine room, Chief, Engineer Greg Foster was running final checks on the dimensional core. Unlike normal engines, the core was a perfect cube about 1 meter on each side, floating in the center of a clear chamber. It glowed with a soft purple light and seemed to shift slightly when not looked at directly, as if it existed partly in another dimension already. "How's our baby doing?" Steve asked, entering the room. Greg looked up from his tablet. "All readings are normal, Captain. Dr. Russell's calculations have been triple-checked. The core is stable and ready to activate on your command." "Good." Steve watched the cube for a moment. It was hard to believe that something so small could bend the laws of physics. "And you? Are you ready?" Greg took a deep breath. "My husband thinks I'm crazy for volunteering, but he understands why I had to be here. Some chances only come once in history." Steve patted him on the shoulder and made his final stop at the bridge. Unlike the cramped command centers of older ships, the Vanguard's bridge was a spacious circular room. 7 crew stations surrounded a central platform where the captain stood. Each station controlled a different aspect of the ship, from communications to the dimensional core itself. Lieutenant Laura Phillips, the ship's pilot, looked up as Steve entered. Her job was perhaps the strangest on the ship, piloting a vessel that didn't actually move through space. "All systems green, Captain," she reported. "Dimensional coordinates are locked in for the Proxima Centauri system." Steve nodded and took his place on the command platform. "Ship-wide communication," he said, and a soft tone indicated that everyone on board could now hear him. "Crew of the Vanguard, this is Captain Hendricks. In 15 minutes, we will attempt the first 7th dimensional jump in human history. Each of you was chosen for this mission because you are the best Earth has to offer. Whatever happens today, I am proud to serve with you." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Our mission is simple. Jump to the Proxima Centauri system, confirm our position, and return to Earth. A journey that would take years with conventional drives will be accomplished in seconds. If successful, this test will change humanity's place in the galaxy forever." Steve ended the ship-wide communication and turned to his bridge crew. "Final checks, all stations." Outside the Vanguard, in a reinforced bunker half a kilometer away, Olivia Russell, John Blackwell, and Admiral Kate Benson watched on large screens. A dozen other scientists and military officials stood behind them, everyone silent with tension. "The core is stable," Olivia reported, looking at the readings from the ship. "All calculations are correct." "If this works," Admiral Benson said, quietly, "the Valari will never know what hit them." In the center screen, they could see Steve on the bridge as he received the final reports from his crew. "All stations report ready, Captain," said his first officer, a calm woman named Linda Boyd. Steve took a deep breath. "Begin dimensional countdown, 10 minutes." The ship's computer began the countdown as the crew made their final preparations. In the bunker, Olivia felt her heart racing. Everything she had worked for over the past 5 years came down to this moment. 5 minutes to dimensional shift, the computer announced. On the bridge, Steve Hendricks moved to sit in his command chair. Special restraints came up around him and the rest of the crew. No one knew exactly what the jump would feel like. 2 minutes to dimensional shift. In the engine room, Greg watched as the purple glow of the dimensional core grew brighter. The cube seemed to vibrate slightly, though nothing was actually moving. 1 minute to dimensional shift. In the medical bay, Paul strapped himself to a chair, a monitor next to him ready to record the crew's vital signs during the jump. 30 seconds to dimensional shift. In the bunker, Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the dream that had shown her the equation. Was it really just a dream or something more? 10 seconds to dimensional shift. On the bridge, Steve gripped the arms of his chair. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Initiating dimensional shift. For a split second, everyone on the Vanguard felt as if they were being pulled in every direction at once. The lights flickered and there was a sound like a deep bell ringing. Then, nothing. "Status report," Steve said, his voice sounding strangely flat in his own ears. Laura checked her screens. "Captain, I don't believe it." "What is it, Lieutenant?" She looked up, her eyes wide. "We're in the Proxima Centauri system. The jump worked. We just traveled 4.2 light years in less than a second." In the bunker, alarms were going off as the sensors registered that the Vanguard had vanished. Olivia leaned forward, watching the empty hangar on the screen. "Did it work?" Admiral Benson asked, her voice tense. Before Olivia could answer, one of the scientists called out, "We're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the Proxima Centauri system." A new screen lit up, showing Steve's face. Despite the 4.2 light years between them, there was no delay in the transmission, another benefit of the seventh dimensional technology. "Groom Lake, this is the USS Vanguard," Steve said, a huge smile on his face. "We have successfully arrived at Proxima Centauri. The jump took approximately 0.3 seconds from our perspective. All crew members are safe and all systems are operating normally." The bunker erupted in cheers. Olivia felt tears running down her face as years of work culminated in this perfect moment of triumph. "Congratulations, Captain Hendricks," Admiral Benson said, stepping forward. "You've just changed history." "Thank you, Admiral," Steve replied. "The Vanguard is preparing for the return jump. We'll see you in a moment." On the bridge of the Vanguard, Laura was already setting the coordinates for Earth. "Return jump calculations complete, Captain. Ready when you are." Steve nodded. "Take us home, Lieutenant." Once again, the strange pulling sensation washed over them. The deep bell sound echoed through the ship, and then they were back in the hangar at Groom Lake, as if they had never left. Humanity had just taken its first step into a much larger universe. 2 weeks after the successful test of the USS Vanguard, the Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. News had spread quickly through the settled systems. Human ships were appearing and disappearing without warning, bypassing the established jump gates that all other species used. Some aliens claimed to have seen Earth vessels appear inside their own defensive grids, take readings, and vanish before they could be challenged. The grand chamber of the council was no longer filled with laughter. Now the representatives of 17 alien species spoke in worried whispers. The Zolaxian representative, Zolteth, pounded his 4 fists on the table. "This is unacceptable. The humans have hidden technology from the council. They have violated treaty agreements." The ancient Phylaxian council leader raised her hand for silence. There were no violations. Earth was never required to share all its research, only to refrain from certain dangerous technologies. Dimensional travel was not on that list. "Because we thought they were centuries away from developing it," Zolteth shouted. Far from the council chamber, in the massive throne room of the Valari Empire's central palace, Emperor Zextor received disturbing news from his generals. The Valari were insect-like beings with 4 arms and hard green shells covering their bodies. They had built their empire through conquest, taking what they wanted from weaker species. "Explain again," the Emperor said, his voice clicking with the sounds of his species. "The human ships can appear anywhere without warning?" General Vex bowed low, his antennae twitching nervously. "Yes, Emperor. Our border stations report human vessels materializing inside our defensive grids, scanning our forces, and vanishing before our weapons can target them. And our planned invasion of their system? It must be delayed, Emperor. The humans now have the ability to bypass our defenses entirely. They could appear directly inside our ships, plant explosives, and disappear. Our advantage in numbers and firepower means nothing if we cannot engage them." The Emperor's compound eyes glittered with anger. Find a way to detect these ships, find a way to stop them. The Valari Empire will not be threatened by primitive apes. Back on Earth, in the Oval Office of the White House, President William Clark received the first intelligence gathered by the Seventh Dimensional Fleet. The room was filled with the top military and scientific leaders, including Admiral Benson, Dr. Russell, and the recently returned Alan Carter. Our ships have successfully mapped the Valari fleet movements, Admiral Benson reported. They had assembled invasion forces at 5 staging points around our solar system. Total count, 300 capital ships and over 1,000 smaller vessels. The president studied the holographic display showing the Valari positions. Enough to overwhelm our conventional defenses. Yes, sir, the admiral agreed. Without the 7th dimensional ships, we would have had no warning until they were already in our system, and no chance of victory once they arrived. Alan Carter stepped forward. The Galactic Council is in an uproar. Several species are demanding that Earth share the technology or face sanctions. And the Valari representative? The president asked. Suspiciously quiet, Alan said. They're planning something. Dr. Russell, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Mr. President, there's something you should know. The Vanguard's technology can do more than just move a ship from one point to another. Everyone turned to look at her. The same principles that allow us to shift between dimensions can be applied in other ways, she continued. Specifically, we could theoretically shift an entire planet into a 7th dimensional state. The room fell silent. Are you saying we could make Earth disappear? The president finally asked. Temporarily, yes, Olivia confirmed. It would require enormous power, and we would need to build 7-dimensional generators at strategic points around the globe. But it is possible. How long would it take to build these generators? Olivia looked at Admiral Benson, who nodded. We already started construction, sir. They'll be ready in 2 days. The president's eyebrows rose. You began this project without authorization? We saw the Valari build up, sir, the admiral said firmly, and Dr. Russell's calculations indicated a high probability of success. I made the call to begin preparations. After a long moment, the president nodded. You made the right call, Admiral. If the Valari are planning an invasion, we need every advantage. He turned back to the holographic display. What do you propose? Operation Phantom Shield, Admiral, Benson said. When the Valari fleet enters our system, we activate the generators. Earth shifts partially into the 7th dimension, becoming invisible and untouchable to conventional weapons or sensors. Meanwhile, our fleet, which will be waiting outside the system, comes in behind them. On the Valari flagship, Emperor Zextor himself had come to lead the invasion. The humans' new ships were concerning, but their planet couldn't run away. The Empire's scouts had confirmed that Earth had only one 7th-dimensional vessel, the Vanguard. The rest were still under construction. The time to strike is now, the Emperor told his generals, before they can build more of these ships. Our scientists may not understand how their technology works, but they don't need to. We simply need to destroy their world before they can use it against us. General Vex looked uncertain. Emperor, our scouts have reported unusual energy readings from Earth. They appear to be building something at various points around their planet. All the more reason to attack immediately, the Emperor declared. Prepare the fleet for the jump to Earth. We will strike in 6 hours. On Earth, final preparations were being made. 7 massive generators had been positioned around the globe, each one connected to the planetary power grid. In the control room beneath the White House, Olivia Russell worked frantically to finalize the calculations. The dimensional shift would only last for 30 minutes before the generators burned out. It had to be timed perfectly. The Valari fleet is preparing to jump, an officer reported. Estimated arrival in Earth orbit, 6 hours. President Clark looked at Admiral Benson. Is the Vanguard ready? Yes, sir. Captain Hendricks has his orders. The ship will remain in normal space when we activate Phantom Shield, along with our other completed vessels. They'll be cloaked using a modified version of the technology. And if this doesn't work, the president asked quietly, then humanity will need to be very good at fighting a superior force, the admiral replied honestly. 6 hours later, the massive Valari armada emerged from hyperspace, weapons charged and ready to bombard Earth into submission. But where a blue-green planet should have been, there was nothing but empty space. In the Volari flagship, Emperor Zexatur's compound eyes widened in confusion. Where is it? Where is Earth? Unknown, Emperor, his science officer replied, antennae twitching nervously. Our sensors detect no trace of the planet or its moon. It's as if they never existed. Before the Emperor could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. On the view screen, 300 sphere-shaped vessels appeared around the Volari fleet. Each one was identical to the USS Vanguard. From the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Steve Hendricks opened a channel to the Volari flagship. Attention, Volari. Vessels. You have entered Earth space with hostile intent. Your weapons systems are now being disabled and your engines shut down. Earth is under the protection of the 7th dimension. Emperor Zexatur stared at the view screen in disbelief. His mighty invasion fleet was surrounded by human ships that had appeared from nowhere. One by one, his vessels reported that their weapons and engines were shutting down. Some unknown energy, field from the spherical Earthships, was passing through their hulls, disabling their systems without firing a single shot. This is impossible, the Emperor hissed, his mandibles clicking in rage. How can they affect our ships without even attacking? His science officer trembled. The 7th dimension allows them to phase energy directly into our systems, bypassing our shields completely. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Steve Hendricks watched as the Volari fleet became powerless. Not a single shot had been fired. Not one life had been lost. This was the true power of the 7th dimensional technology. It made traditional warfare obsolete. The Volari fleet is completely disabled, Captain, Laura Phillips reported from her station. They're dead in space. Steve nodded and opened a channel to Earth, or rather to where Earth should have been. Control, this is Vanguard. Operation Phantom Shield was successful. The Volari fleet has been neutralized. You can bring the planet back now. In the control room beneath the White House, Olivia Russell heard Steve's message and began the sequence to reverse the dimensional shift. The 7 generators around the world had performed perfectly, pushing Earth slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. Now they would bring it back. Beginning dimensional reversion in 3, 2, 1, she said. There was a moment when everyone in the control room felt a strange sensation, as if they were being gently pulled back into their proper shapes. Then the screen showed normal space again, with Earth exactly where it had always been. Except now the disabled Volari fleet was trapped in orbit, surrounded by human vessels. President Clark looked at the display with a mixture of relief and pride. It worked. We actually made an entire planet disappear. Not disappear, Olivia corrected. We simply shifted it partially into the 7th dimension, where the Volari couldn't see or touch it. We were here the whole time, just slightly out of sync with normal space. 3 days later, in the Galactic Council chamber, Alan Carter stood once again at the speaking circle. This time there was no laughter. The representatives of the 17 species listened in complete silence as he explained what had happened. The Volari Empire planned to attack Earth without provocation, Alan said. Their fleet of over 1,300 vessels would have destroyed our defenses and killed billions of humans. We defended ourselves using our new technology in a way that prevented any loss of life on either side. The Drillari ambassador, who had mocked humans just weeks before, leaned forward. And what do you intend to do with the captured Volari ships and their emperor? We will return them to Volari space, Alan replied calmly. After removing their weapon systems, the Emperor has signed a peace treaty with Earth, promising that the Volari Empire will never again threaten any human world or colony. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Returning captured ships was unheard of in galactic politics. So was showing mercy to a defeated enemy leader. The ancient Phylaxian Council leader raised her hand for silence. Earth has demonstrated not only advanced technology but also remarkable restraint. Many species would have used such power to destroy their enemies completely. Alan nodded. Humans have a long history of warfare. We've learned the hard way that victory without justice rarely leads to lasting peace. After the council meeting, Alan was approached by representatives from 5 different species, all asking for private meetings to discuss technology sharing agreements with Earth. He politely scheduled the meetings, but knew that Earth would be careful about sharing the 7th-dimensional technology. It was too powerful to give away. Without guarantees, it wouldn't be misused. On Earth, in her lab at Groom Lake, Olivia Russell had already moved beyond the 7th dimension. Her screen showed new equations even more complex than before. If the 7th dimension allowed ships to move instantly across space, the 9th dimension might allow them to move through time itself. But that research would wait. For now, humanity needed to focus on building more ships and establishing its new position in the galaxy. The 7th-dimensional technology had done more than just save Earth from the Valeri. It had changed the balance of power throughout known space. In the Eli Oval Office, President Clark met with Admiral Benson and the newly promoted General Steve Hendricks to discuss the future. "We've received messages from 12 previously unknown species," the President said. "They were all considered too primitive to join the Galactic Council, just as we were. They're asking for protection and alliances." "The underdogs of the galaxy," Steve said with a small smile, "looking to Earth for leadership." Admiral Benson nodded. "We should help them. We know what it's like to be dismissed and underestimated." 2 months later, a new treaty was signed in New York City. Representatives from Earth and 14 other developing species agreed to form the Alliance of Free Worlds. Unlike the Galactic Council, which was dominated by the oldest and most advanced species, the Alliance would give equal voice to all its members. The signing ceremony was broadcast throughout known space. Dr. Olivia Russell, who had become something of a celebrity since the technology she discovered had saved Earth, was asked to give a brief speech. She walked to the podium, looking slightly uncomfortable with all the attention. Behind her stood Captain Greg Foster and Dr. Paul West from the Vanguard, along with Linda Boyd, who now commanded her own 7th-dimensional ship. "The universe is not 3-dimensional, Olivia began, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. "It never was. We were simply viewing reality through too narrow a lens. The older species of the galaxy made the mistake of thinking they had discovered all there was to know. They stopped looking for new paths, new possibilities." She looked out at the audience of humans and aliens. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our curiosity, our refusal to accept that something is impossible just because everyone says it is. That's the spirit we bring to this alliance, and that's the spirit that will take us all to places we've never dreamed of." As Olivia finished her speech on a ship at the edge of the solar system, Alan Carter stood with Valerie Reese, watching. "Earth on a view screen. Remember when they laughed at us?" Valerie asked. Alan smiled. "No one's laughing now." Valerie looked thoughtful. "Do you think Dr. Russell really discovered that equation in a dream?" "I don't know," Alan replied. "Maybe it was just her brilliant mind working even while she slept. Or maybe what?" Alan shrugged. "Maybe there's something more out there, in those higher dimensions. Something that wanted to help us take our first steps into a larger universe." Valerie considered this for a moment, then smiled. "Well, whatever or whoever it was, I'm grateful. The galaxy's a more interesting place now that humans have joined the conversation." As their ship prepared to jump to a diplomatic meeting in another system, Earth glowed blue and green behind them, a small planet that had just changed the course of galactic history. And somewhere in her lab, Olivia Russell was already working on the next impossibility.